Mental Mondays ignite the spark. Hope guides each step, even in the dark. New week, new dreams to see. Hope's the key to what's meant to be.
Hey, welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Hope. I am Hope. And my guest here today is Angel Torella. Now, Angel, you know that I do try to, which I didn't really tell you this, I start my show with a positive affirmation from my guest where they say something positive about themselves. I am. So I am what for you, Angel?
I am grateful to see another day.
Grateful to see another day. Okay. And since this is, Angel's first podcast, I'm just going to say, make sure you speak up loud and proud.
Okay.
As I said, as I always say, use your coach voice.
All right.
If you don't have a coach voice, we'll work on that. Because, when I coach sports, people think I'm yelling, but I'm just coaching.
Okay.
So tonight we are going to talk to Angel. We're going to talk about PTSD, his personal journey with PTSD, and one of the ways that he works through that is with situational awareness. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And he's very talkative. Very talkative. So I'll do you want to give a brief or do you want me to? Okay, I will. I can do that. So Angel has, some trauma from his youth. He was the victim of a violent crime that it was pretty fantastic in depth that he was injured. He in his head.
Yes.
He was shot in the head and was also hit with the butt of a gun prior to being shot in the head, and spent a year plus of his life as a teenager learning to walk and talk again.
Yep.
So that's the PTSD. The basis of the PTSD is from that, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. And, of course, there have been some other traumatic things throughout your life.
Yes.
But, really the PTSD, that's kind of the basis. So do you want to tell everyone kind of what your PTSD looks like?
So on a daily basis, I wake up, I just, want to see everything around me and see situations going on, to be aware, if anything happens, a situation happens. So
right.
That's the way I go about it.
Yeah. And then I know that you told me that even when you're in the grocery store, you don't like in your checkout line, if people are standing too close behind you in the checkout line, it kind of triggers your PTSD.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Because, what happened to me happened from behind, the first, incident that I had. And, I just don't like people behind me too close and, standing there and talking all loud and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That can cause trauma. So when that happens, what does it make you feel like? How do you feel when that?
Sometimes I freeze up, and sometimes I try to get out of the situation. Like, for instance, when I go grocery shopping, instead of me, standing behind the cart, I stand in front of the cart to keep the cart in between me and somebody else.
Right. Right. That's a good tactic. And that's something you just kind of, developed for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
In the recognition that it kind of just made you feel a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's part of situational awareness in a very minor, in a very minor part. So the term situational awareness, how would you define that?
Like, say if I'm walking down the street, whether it's daytime or nighttime, I just look at people, the way they walk, what are their intentions, if they stare at me too much, I look at the guy in the corner, in the alleyway somewhere, and stuff like that, and I just,
right,
just deal with it that way.
So basically, situational awareness, the definition of situational awareness is being alert and aware
all the way around,
aware of your surroundings.
Yes.
And that can look different depending on where your surroundings are.
Right.
Okay, so right now we're out in the country. We decided I was going to try to, normally I'm in the studio. Miss you. Miss you, Kendall. And we decided to give this a try remotely today, and had a few hiccups that I'll work out because I, want to be able to take the show on the road, so to speak. So, we're going to work on that. So right now we're sitting out in the country, eating lots of peaches, going out to the country. I always break into song. So how is your awareness of your environment or situational awareness different out here in the country than it is where you live in town, in the city?
Out here, everything is mellow, it's cool, it's not really that bad, I just, I can handle this part.
Right. But there are different things that you make yourself aware of?
No,
being out
really.
in the country?
Not really. No.
Okay. For me, being a country girl, my situational awareness, again, he and I are both looking at this differently. He's looking at situational awareness as a way of self-protection.
Yes.
And I'm looking at situational awareness as one always being aware of their surroundings, no matter what those surroundings are, and not necessarily as a means of protecting yourself. With someone such as yourself with PTSD, your senses are a little more heightened.
Yes.
Looking for the potential for bad.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Whereas me, I'm out in the country here. So my situational awareness is, or part of it, because I'm very aware of my surroundings always, even though I may not look it, is when I'm driving at dusk, I use my high beams, because dusk is the time that an animal will run out in front of your car.
Oh, yeah.
That is still situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not in the same way that, we're discussing it as someone who has PTSD. If you have hit enough deer, because if you live in Pennsylvania and you haven't hit a deer, you're not a Pennsylvanian. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen for anybody. But certainly if you've had the terrible experience, that could be very traumatic driving at night if you've had a bad experience.
Oh, yeah.
So using your ability to, know your surroundings. Yeah. So do you have any advice? Like, what are some basic situational awareness tips that you could give anyone? And then we're going to specifically talk about women. So, what are some tips that you can give people?
Just, pay attention to your surroundings, at all times. Try not to let stuff trigger you. I myself, when I get triggered, I calm myself down. I got a coping mechanism, I calm myself down, and just go through it.
My bad. Sorry. That'll be the blooper reel.
Yeah.
Phone fell. Oh, that'll be the blooper reel. Now, what you said you have a coping mechanism? Do you mind sharing that? What is it that you do to calm yourself down?
I just, just get over stuff quickly. I talk to myself, I inner talk to myself.
Right.
It's not that bad, just try to get through it.
Right. Breathe. And sure.
Calm down. I'm always, I'm a real quiet, mellow person, so people cannot really tell when I'm triggered, because that's one of the coping mechanisms I got.
Right. Quiet dude.
Yeah.
People, it's hard to read you. But now you do something and I do the same thing, but we kind of do it for different reasons. We do it for the same reason, but for different reasons. Both of us, and maybe a lot of other people do this as well. When I go into a restaurant, I like to sit with my back in the corner or up against the wall, so I can see everything around me, see everything that's going on around me.
I like to sit in a booth.
In a booth, yeah.
Yep. In a booth, I want to see the doors, I want to see people coming in and out. Right.
And we both do it for the same reasons, is that I want to be aware in case anything goes down.
Yeah.
But me, when I'm doing it, it is just a protective thing that I do for myself and my family.
Yeah.
And I'm never triggered. I'm not heightened, I guess you could say, when I'm doing that. Now, when you do the same exact thing, are you already at a heightened state, like more amplified, getting, making sure your surroundings are
Not really heightened. It just, I just want to be aware of the surroundings that I am.
right, and that calms you?
Yeah, that comes.
Yeah. So, and PTSD, is it can come from a variety of things. And I remember when we all, as a society, if you want to call it that, but I've been in this field, when people in general started talking about PTSD, the first thing was military, that only people in the military had PTSD.
Yep. I used to get that a lot.
Right. But PTSD, and what you went through was extremely traumatic. And, certainly PTSD is something that could very easily be triggered by a situation like that. But PTSD also occurs for people that are in situations over time, where you're in the same situation that's traumatic, and PTSD is something that can happen. I've said this on my show before. I even said it last week, and I'm going to say it again, that I feel that as a nation, we all suffer from some level of PTSD.
That's right.
Ever since 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I don't know if that's anything, you were there.
Yeah, I was in the mountains of East Orange, New Jersey.
Right.
I saw both planes hit. I saw the first one, went inside the house and got my buddy and told him, hey, look, man, the plane just hit one of the Twin Towers. And when we came outside to look, the other plane came in.
Right.
Right. It took me 3 days to get home because everything was shut down. We had to sleep in the truck. We got home, checked in, make sure, everybody knew we were okay. Right.
And I feel that just from us as Americans, as a society, watching that on television over and over and over again. And initially we saw the planes, and then, then we saw the soot, then we saw, the firefighters, then we saw, the injured people. And then as it progressed over time of watching the documentaries and the anniversaries, we saw the people falling out of the building. We saw the people jumping out of the building. And that's something that is very traumatic. And I don't know if you've experienced one of the possible symptoms of PTSD. Again, there are many. Could be like outbursts of anger. Is that anything that you've ever experienced?
I don't have outbursts of anger, but I do got a temper. And I don't like, to lose it.
Right.
Because it takes me a long time to calm down. Sometimes when I get really, really upset, really angry, I find myself having to take a nap because I get that tired.
Okay. Well, sure. That's an adrenaline rush. And then, yeah, absolutely. But now that was before your incident there where you might have had a temper, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not gonna blame that one on the event.
No.
So yeah, sorry. So I'm going back to 9/11 and talking about PTSD, but we're going all over the map with PTSD today. I don't know if we can call it PTSD with everything that's going on in politics right now, but I know that, you are of Puerto Rican heritage, and, your skin is different color than, us white people. And you do something that I, as a white person, and I touched on this a little bit last week, and you know what, I'm talking a little political, but it is mental health. You do something that I would never have to do, is that you carry your birth certificate with you.
Every day since all this started.
And what does that feel like?
It feels like they out to get me. And that brings up my PTSD.
Right. Yeah. Right. And again, like I said, I said it last week, I'll say it again, I, as a white person, that's something that I've never even considered that I would have to do. carry my birth certificate to prove that I'm an American citizen. And that's something that not just you. I have a few friends who are Puerto Rican who also carry their birth certificates with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we like say New York Rican.
Yeah, New York Rican. New York Rican.
New York Rican. And I can see where that could be frustrating. So I know like where you live, you know, like, a lot of the police officers and things like that. So you might feel more comfortable, but in a situation where like here, you're by me, in the country, do you feel that you're more, more vigilant, more aware, like of police, of government, of anything like that, driving the speed limit, making sure your car is taken care of, when you're away from police officers that you might know?
No, I feel calm, relaxed here,
Okay.
And I feel calm and relaxed, like I said, in certain situations, I put myself in, like, like if I go hang out in Allentown for some reason, there, I know a couple of cops there, but, there's always a possibility that, that these people can show up and question you about your birthrights.
Right. I think, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about what you've done as a martial artist.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm hoping Kendall is still there in the studio.
Just about ready to take a break. So you guys just hang on 1 minute. Here we go.
All right. Are we back with sound and everything?
Yeah, you are. I just wanted to tap in and chime in for just one second. I wanted to ask you, where are you from?
I was born in the Bronx, and I was raised in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, so both places would be traumatic anyway, growing up in those different environments. Where in the Bronx you grow up at?
South Bronx.
South Bronx. Okay, that's what is
East
that?
Street,
I know that.
Cypress.
Yeah, I know that area over there, right? Yeah, it's kind of rough over there.
Yeah.
So you had the PTSD prior to 9/11, is what I would say, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for him.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, even before, I don't know when the incident took place, but that's not your first experience with different incidences. You were having incidents long before that time, right?
Yeah.
Or you've seen different incidents. Like I could tell you, I have PTSD, and I think the first time something hit me is I was down in the projects because I grew up in Brooklyn, and I saw a cat got thrown off a roof, and he landed right in front of me. But so that was, I guess that may have triggered something there. You know what I mean? But like I know, those type of incidents happens all the time, especially in the environment that we come from. The guns, the shootings, or the all different kind of crazy stuff. That's why I love living out here, because of the quietness.
Yeah,
I love the quietness out here. So I guess you can understand that portion of it. Yeah, I just wanted to ask where you came from. This way I can see the environment that you come from. It gives me a little better understanding about your issues with PTSD versus my issues with PTSD.
Right.
You know? All right.
Yeah,
All right.
Hey, Kendall, you can chime in anytime.
No, this is you. This is your show. Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask the young man a couple of questions. That's all. Because he went from, you know what he went from? He went from the frying pan to the fire. Because New Jersey is no joke. Even the Bronx, South Bronx, it can be a little rough, especially if you go down to certain areas, Hoe Avenue and so forth and so on. It can be a little rough down in those areas. But Newark, Newark is a whole nother avenue. That's a whole nother different things there. It's a lot of murders take place there. There are a lot of drugs flow through there. It's a pretty rough neighborhood, enough to give anybody PTSD. So when we say Americans have PTSD, I think people that come from the impoverished neighborhoods, I think they truly understand what PTSD is. Exactly. Because people that don't come from those neighborhoods or don't come from that or didn't grow up in those type of environments, what they call PTSD is maybe just a bad day.
Yep.
For us, it's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
You understand?
And you know what? And that's actually a very fair assessment. I remember driving. I was driving to Long Island for a funeral. So whatever highway I was on, and I remember there was a body in the median of the road. I mean, it was, I can't remember how many lanes. It wasn't a huge highway, but I remember, and it was covered. And I remember to this day just seeing the sneaker sticking out. And that's like, I mean, I read the ambulance. So for me, it wasn't like traumatic to see that because but I remember it to this day. But when I listen to Angel talk, and I mean, the amount of death that he has witnessed because of being in those areas.
A product of
I tell you, Hope, I was thinking about writing a book. I tell you, I wanted to write a book. And the book, I kind of wanted to write it about my life, but the more I read and the more I educate myself, the more people that I meet, the more I find that I'm not unique. So I think maybe the book should be about trauma and the type of trauma that Angel and I received from the environment in which we came up in. Because there were a lot of things that happened to me. I already spoke to you about some of those things. There's some crazy things that happened to me, and I'm sure they happened to Angel. But not only do it happen to you, you see it happen to other people.
Right.
So it's not just like something, traumatizes you. You got stuff that happens every single day. Okay. Right. You hear about somebody getting shot. Oh, well, Johnny got shot. Yeah. Okay. Let's go play some handball. Let's go finish playing handball. We'll do what we're going to do. Or somebody got locked up and going to prison. Oh, okay. That's just another day, another thing. See, out here, people would go crazy. They would lose their mind. I gotta, they would go crazy. They wouldn't know what to do.
No, you're absolutely correct. I am going to disagree with you.
Other situations where we really have to keep our cool. I have to take medication for us. He's able to do it through breathing or through meditation. But when we get in these situations where we really need to keep our cool, we're the best persons to come to because we'll know how to handle the situation when other people won't.
No, absolutely. I am going to disagree with you, though, Kendall. I feel that you should still write your story. And here's the reason. Because I wrestled with that myself about writing, my story. And I felt, there are so many people that go through this, but not everybody's telling their story. And the one person that tells their story, then that opens the door for other people to say, oh, wow, yeah, I experienced that too. Oh, wow.
I was telling you, Hope, I read a lot, right? So one of the books that I read is called Man-Child in the Promised Land by a cat named Claude Brown. And if you read Man-Child in the Promised Land, you just read my story. Okay. If you read There Are No Children Here, you just read my story. If you read a brother named Nathan McCall, he wrote a book, Make Me Want to Holler, you just read my story. So what I'm saying is that the type of trauma that we receive coming from the environment that we come from, it's not unusual. It's not unique. It's just another day, another person. I grew up in a building in the projects. Jesus, you had to have at least 1,000 people that lived in that projects. You understand? Every floor had 20 to 30 apartments on every floor. 16 flights, but then you got the roof. So the people that lived there were crazy, man. Look, you can hear the people above you when they're doing the do. You can hear the people next door when they're fighting. You can hear the people underneath you. Your mind never gets an opportunity to rest.
Right.
Let's put it that way. And you have to be on alert because the type of neighborhood that you're in, and look, down in Brooklyn, they used to have a saying, if you ain't from here, what you doing here?
Yep.
And if you're walking through here, something gonna happen to you. So here now you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden somebody's sticking a gun in your face because you're walking through their neighborhood. Not that you did anything wrong. There's nothing nefarious about what you did. Just the fact that you're walking through their neighborhood, that's enough. So you got to watch your back from that.
Yeah.
You know, like I was telling people, my entire time living in New York, I never carried a firearm. I didn't start carrying a firearm until I got out here. Ain't that a shame? Out here, I'm more afraid of what's going to happen to me and people that look like me than me walking in New York City, downtown Brooklyn. I'd walk downtown Brooklyn anytime with no weapon. Out here, I don't know. It's a little different out here. I mean, I can relax out here. I find things more peaceful out here, but I don't go out much at night. And out here, they do have sundown towns. And out here, they also had the Ku Klux Klan. Not that they don't have it in Long Island, too. That's the major headquarters. But there are multiple things that people like Angel and I, that we have to watch our back for. I mean, not just people that look like us, that we think they want to do something nefarious to us, but people that don't look like us, that want to do nefarious things for us just because of the way we look.
Right.
They judge the book long before they judge the book and everything just based on the cover. That's it. So yeah, we have to walk. It's like walking on eggshells all the time until you get to your comfort zone.
Right. And
me,
and again,
it's my home.
Because, you know, because this is a mental health show, and because we're talking about PTSD, how does that make you feel?
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about PTSD. I told you before, I've had PTSD from we call it post-traumatic slave syndrome. So, you know, people that look like me, I mean, trauma, PTSD, you got to go back way to what, the 1700s, 1600s?
Right.
That's where our trauma started.
Right.
Okay. So, and 100-year, decade after decade after decade, to the point where we don't even trust each other. We don't trust people that even look like us. And that's a shame, because we come to the point where we hate ourselves. See, Angel can slip and slide a little bit because, you know, if he doesn't open his mouth, nobody know what he is. So he can do a whole lot of I'm Italian or this. He can do a lot of different things until he says I'm Puerto Rican. Then it becomes a problem.
Right.
Then he gets into that Ponce de Leon, which is the person that discovered. He also named Puerto Rico, that conquistador that came there in 1601. You see, and that's when, like, he's got just by his complexion, I can tell there's some Spaniard, because there were conquistadors that came there. Now, also when they got there, they had the Taínos that were there. Along with the Taínos, they brought African slaves with them. That's why they call it Puerto Rico. It means rich port. Port of riches. They called it that because that was part of the Atlantic slave trade. And it was one of the richest ports there. But Puerto Ricans are a mixture of three cultures, or three, you know, that construct of races. You know, it's three combined. Same thing with a Dominican. That's why I can never understand the difference between a Dominican and a Puerto Rican, because the same person discovered them, and it was a conquistador, and they brought African slaves, and there were Taínos there. So I don't understand it. I know what it is, because back in Santo Domingo, they wanted to try to make everybody white. Right. They really did. They wanted to eliminate the blackness. They had a little town over there called Hispaniola. That's where that term Hispanic, it comes from Santo Domingo in Hispaniola. You know, I ain't trying to give y'all no history lesson, but trauma is trauma, and we've been going back and forth with trauma for centuries. Yeah. And a lot of the trauma has been induced upon us from people that don't look like us.
Right. Absolutely. So
we have a lot to fear. We got to fear the people that look like us, because they've been brainwashed and they've been conditioned to hate themselves. So they hate anybody that looks like me. Right. So you got that. And then you got the people that don't look like me, but they hate me because I look like the way I look.
Right. Yep.
And then you got the other people. They look. Martin Luther King said it best. There's two types of people. You got people that are sincerely ignorant. It means they just don't know. Right. And then you have the other class of people that are conscientiously stupid. They know, but they continue to do so.
Right.
I.e. Donald Trump, i.e. all these other people they know better, but they continue to do what they do.
Right.
Yeah. As far as the racism part, you know, when I was growing up, a pastor from the local church, saw me grow up, and one day he told me, that I have a strong name in the Bible that means messenger of God.
Mhm.
So he tells me, do you want to try to change the world? And I said, I wish I could. So he says to me, the way you could change the world, do one random act of kindness a day, and you change the world. A friend of mine recently asked me about racism. He says to me, how do you think racism could stop? And I said, well, don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. I treat you with respect. You treat me with respect,
Well, see, this is where I disagree. I think it's too much of where we don't speak about it, and that's the problem. Look, as a black person, we should have had reparations. I don't know how long ago. Other people have been incarcerated. Other people have had this abuse after us, and they've been rewarded for it. They receive awards. They reparations. The Jews don't even live here, and we gave them reparations.
Right.
Okay. Now, as a black person, we given hundreds and hundreds of years of free labor that white people today still have the privilege that they have because of the free labor that they receive from us. So when someone tells me, why do you still talk about slavery? Hey, why do you still talk about the 4th of July? Because it's history.
Oh, that's true.
You get me?
Yep.
So we're going to continue to keep talking about the 4th of July. We're going to continue to talk about the Holocaust. How long did the Holocaust last? Let's be realistic. I give it, I'm going to use the hyperbole, 20 years. 20 years, I'm going to say. And that's really exaggerating, okay? How long does slavery last? How long does segregation last? Yeah, and on and on and on and on and on, okay?
Right.
They tell you, you know what they'll tell you? Well, if all black people, if you just go on and live by yourselves, and it'd be okay. Well, we did that. We built Wall Street. They called it Black Wall Street. They burnt it down.
Right.
They built another one called Greenwood. They burnt that down. And every time black people start to come together, unite together, and start to build, they break it and tear it down. Then they use propaganda. There's a whole lot of propaganda that's thrown there that makes you hate yourself. You got black people calling each other by the N-word.
Right.
A racial slur.
I think Angel, might mean more of like one-on-one, like, he's doing work for somebody, don't refer to him as, the N-word, which he has had on jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Or anything like that. You just talk to me as a human being. I talk to you as a human being. And there's not going to be any racism here today, meaning on that job, which tends to happen a lot. You know that, Kendall.
Here's the problem, though. This is the problem. They don't see you as human. They dehumanize you before when you come in the door, boss.
That is
You're not
true.
human to them. You're not.
For some people,
Right
you're
away,
right.
look, like I was telling her, being black, you know what that means? When people see me, by default, I'm a criminal.
Right.
By default. I walk past white women, they snatch their bag, grab their husband's arm, and get as tight as they can. Because I'm a criminal by default.
And you're not wrong. And you are not wrong in saying that. Not that you're a criminal by default, but you're not wrong in saying that because I've seen it happen. Where, a black person is walking with their hood up is viewed differently than a white person walking with their hood up. I've witnessed it. But we can totally go off on this tangent, but I really wanted to take a couple minutes because I don't want to be on too long and talk to Angel about what he has done with martial arts because we're talking about situational awareness. And
What style did you study before I disappear? What style did you study?
What's that?
I'm asking Angel, what style did you study?
Stay on screen with us.
I studied Aikido for 6.5 years.
Goju-Ryu.
I'm a 5th degree black.
Goju-Ryu. The style I studied was Isshin-Ryu, Goju-Ryu, Japanese styles. My teacher was Moses Powell, Black Moses. No, that was my sensei.
My teacher was Yoshimitsu Yamada. He was from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
He was in World War II in Japan when they dropped the bomb in Hiroshima.
Mm-hmm.
He used to show us his forehead was full of bullets. But he was a professor.
He used to teach a lot of guys that were Islamic.
Right.
He taught a lot of cats that was Islamic. All right, so you see I'm out. Enjoy the rest of your show.
All right. So let's talk about that a little bit. You studied Aikido.
Yeah.
But you like, how did that help you, just for you personally?
Well, okay, with the PTSD I got going on, with the head injury I had going on, I think it opened up parts of my brain that I didn't know that exist. And that, when I took up Aikido, it put me in a different mindset because, my sensei told us, that all life is precious, no matter what. So with that, he humbles us because the art that he told us, I could really hurt somebody really bad
Right.
just with my hands.
Right.
So I'm humble behind that. And, I find that, that part of my PTSD, helped me, learning that art, calm me down to the point that, okay, I know this, I could defend myself. If a situation happens with a weapon, I could defend myself.
Right.
So,
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. Knowledge is power.
yes.
And, you may have been attracted to that art, even though you didn't realize it consciously,
Right.
because of your PTSD or because of your past.
Right.
But there's something that you and your sensei did with the art that, again, we're talking about situational awareness and PTSD. And you taught women who were in abusive relationships or had gotten out of
Yeah.
abusive relationships. What did you, just give us a brief, like just some of the things that you taught them, but then what did you teach them about situational awareness?
Okay. Me and my sensei, we sat down one time and we realized that we respect women, we love women. So we decided to give back to the community by helping out through the Lehigh Valley Battered Women program. I taught women there for about 2, maybe 3 years. And they moved on, and the program shut down, So
But during that time period, so I mean, you taught basic
technique, how to break free from somebody's grab, how to go if they attack, how to go for the sensitive parts in the body, like the eyes, break the nose, break the kneecap or whatever, so you could get away and be
Right.
safe.
Right. And I know that, you've probably had conversations with either the whole group or individual women about being aware of their surroundings. What advice did you give them?
The advice I gave them, a lot of people say, gut feeling, you get the sickness in your gut, you get the hair standing up on your arm, on the back of your neck, you look at a certain place, and, but if you don't want to walk that way, cross the street or, make sure, people are around, make sure, in front of the public, don't go into places by yourselves. Especially, like if you're gonna go out to a club or to a bar, make sure you got a friend with you. Make sure somebody's, watching your drinks for you. Even when you go to get in an Uber, you make sure, you check out the person's plate, you check
Right.
out their ID, if they don't seem legit, don't get in the vehicle.
Right. Right. And that's solid advice. And yes, we do still have Uber up here in the country.
Yes.
But that is solid advice. And I have to ask, just because I'm curious, out of the people that you worked with, the women from the program, did anyone ever report back to you, or talk back, tell you that they had to utilize the skills that you taught them to defend themselves?
Oh yeah, it was one lady that we taught. She ended up, unfortunately, going back to her abuser, and he attacked her, and she broke his collarbone, she broke his orbital socket, and she broke his nose. And the only people that she could call was me or my sensei. So we got up and one went to the police station, went and got her.
Did she go back to him again after that?
Oh no.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
So it did it, because we know statistically that it takes many, many times to leave an abusive relationship,
Yes.
to where you leave for good. And did she say anything about how? I mean, I'm saying I don't want to like, oh yeah, it felt great to smash his face. But did she say anything about, what I had that power to defend myself? Like that's what got me through this instead of getting, beaten up again or what have you.
She told me thank you very much. She thanked me and my sensei for teaching her the style that we taught her. She promised us she was going to go back to him. She went about her life. She got remarried. She had kids.
Great. That's awesome. Now, you had said earlier about the pastor that, said you have a very powerful name,
Yeah.
and about doing random acts of kindness, a daily random act of kindness.
Yes.
So how long ago was that he told you that?
Oh, years ago when I was a kid. That's just one of the things that I remember.
Yeah.
And when I go to sleep doing, trying to do a random act of kindness a day. When I wake up, I try to do the same thing.
Right. And you're pretty successful, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. So when you do a random act of kindness for somebody, they say thank you. They try to pay you or whatever. What do you say?
If I need the money, sometimes I'll take it, but majority of the time, I tell them no, because whatever we're doing down here, I get a big pain when I get up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So I don't know if we even need a recap. PTSD is something that definitely, affects your life. Talk to Kendall there,
Yeah.
Affects the lives of so many people, and especially, if you're more of the urban, poorer communities, seeing the things that you've seen, that Kendall has seen,
Mm-hmm.
that again, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I coached basketball at a school in Allentown, a charter school, and a school that, at this school, these were the kids that fell through the cracks.
Mm.
Like these were the kids that fell through the cracks, and they didn't even have a gym. So we had to go to a community facility to use their gym for practice. Now I just retired. I coached 25 years of basketball, and I coached rec league, and I coached school ball here in my community. And at the end of practice, parents would be parked out in the parking lot, and we would stand outside and watch the kids get into the car, or when it was rec league, the parents had to walk in to get them and sent the families on their merry way. When I worked at that school in Allentown, all these kids took the bus, the city bus. They took the city bus home from practice in the dark.
Wow.
Okay. For me, somebody who lives in the country, that was very difficult for me to let them just get on the bus and go home.
Right.
Because that was not my norm.
Right.
But it was their norm.
Right.
And they laughed at me. And they're like, Coach, this is what we do. And I'm like, I get it. I understand. And I appreciate that we have differences, because of where we live. But if you all could because we had an app back then that we used to contact everybody. I'm like, but if you all could just message me when you get home, so I know that you're home. It's going to take me a while to kind of get used to this.
Right.
So if you could just, do that for me until then. And they were great. They were great. But I also, shared with them what it was like for me coaching up here. And they're like, really? Like parents come and pick up their kids? Again, these are a lot of these kids, which I love to this day. I'm still in touch with so many of them that fell through the cracks, many of them, of the Allentown School District. And, some of these kids, we had basketball games that never had a family member come and watch. So it was a different group of kids than what I was used to. And, I got to share a little bit with them about what it's like where I live. But yeah, so that's the differences between, listen, I'm a country girl with city vibes, and, I love being in the city. I love doing city things. But as far as like living there and witnessing everything that, like you have witnessed in the areas of cities that you've lived in, that's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
So anyone else out there that's ever, that grown up in this situation, and if you've ever witnessed all these things and you've ever, experienced these things and have this kind of anxiety, you're not alone.
Definitely not alone. I
You
go
know.
through it every day from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. Even when I'm sleeping, I don't sleep peacefully because my brain doesn't shut off.
Right.
Like, I'm the type of person, if I'm sleeping and you just say my name, what do you want? What do you need?
Right.
It
Right.
seems like my brain doesn't shut down for me to get some nice relaxation.
Right. Right. And that's because it's constantly vigilant.
Yeah.
Constantly on
But,
guard.
I learned how to live with it. I learned how to deal with it,
Right.
Use it in a positive form,
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. And that's that's the best we all can do with everything, is to try to stay positive with everything that we do. And in the brief amount of time that I've gotten to know you, you seem to do that very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
For being on Mental Health Mondays with me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. In our remote location, we're going to work out the tweaks. You want to say one more thing? Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, this is a tip, especially for women that like going out jogging on these nature trails. Always be aware of your surroundings, okay? Stop putting in your earbuds just to go for a jog or a walk. You got to listen to nature. Listen to everything around you. Because you never know, when a bad person shows up.
You're right. You're right. Absolutely. That is great advice. So I thank you all for watching, and we will be back next Monday, Mental Health Mondays with Hope. I promised Kendall that I'll be back in the studio.
All right, Kendall, it was nice seeing you. Nice talking to you, buddy. Take care of yourself.
All right, everybody. Have a great week. See you next week.